Welcome back to Rewind of the Living Dead. I'm captain of the football team, Damon Martin.
And Damon, I know what you did last summer.
Patrick, yes, tonight we are traveling back in time to our late, what is it, middle school, high school, early high school days?
This was kind of late-ish high school for mid high school for me.
Yeah, so 97, the original, because the sequel's coming out really soon, so we figure what better time to talk about the original. I Know What You Did Last Summer.
Yes, Damon, I know what you did last summer. Released in October of 1997, starring the likes of Johnny Galecki as Max, Anne Heche as Melissa Egan, Freddie Prinze Jr. as Ray, Ryan Phillippe as Barry, Sarah Michelle Gellar as Helen, and Jennifer Love Hewitt as Julie. As you mentioned, Damon, written by Kevin Williamson and adapted from Lois Duncan's novel, directed by Jim Gillespie, with a budget of $17 million and a worldwide gross, hold your hats, of $125 million. That's one of them cash cows, Damon. I know what you did last summer.
Now, before we get and this was adapted from a young adult novel by the same name, but I have to say, even if you hate this movie, and if you don't like anything about this movie, you got to admit the title is catchy. I Know What You Did Last Summer. It's a very catchy title.
It's a really catchy title, and for those who don't listen, who maybe listen on YouTube and they don't hear the intro, Damon played a classic trailer from 1997, and I hate to sound like an old fart, but they don't make them like they used to, with the trailer guy with the creepy voice and talking all about the stuff. But they legit had me laughing right there when they said it's scarier than Scream. I was like, nice try. I understand what we're doing here. We're on the heels of Scream. Everybody's excited. That came out the year prior and just blew the doors off the place. But no, I know what you did not last summer. It's not scarier than Scream. Damon, you want to give people a little history lesson in why this movie even exists? Because it has everything to do with Scream.
Yeah, so Kevin Williamson was a writer, and obviously, if you don't know, if you're not you haven't studied his career or anything, of course, Scream is his biggest, best known project, but don't forget, he also created Dawson's Creek, which was a massive, massive show in the late 90s. I mean, that's what launched a lot of careers, launched Katie Holmes, James Vanderbeek, Joshua Jackson, that was a huge show. But he had written a lot of stuff before Scream, and nobody was interested. Just nobody was buying. No one was buying. And by the way, that's not necessarily an indoctrination on his talent or the screenplays. Yeah. It's just Hollywood's weird that way. They just didn't care. And then Scream got made. And suddenly, two scripts in particular got picked up immediately. One was I Know What You Did Last Summer, and the other one was Teaching Mrs. Tingle, which was originally Killing Mrs. Tingle. Those two screenplays were two others that Kevin Williamson had actually written before Scary Movie was the original title of the Scream script. Before he wrote that, he had written these two other scripts. And as soon as Scream became a smash hit, studios were like, hold on now. Didn't we throw your other screenplay in the trash 2 years ago? Do you still want to make that? Come on board. So they made I Know What You Did Last Summer, and they made Teaching Mrs. Tingle right away. And of course, he also did The Faculty. He did a lot of their stuff after this, but those two screenplays in particular were done before Scream, and no one cared. Scream hit, and they're like, come on, man, we want to make your next movie. Come on in.
Yeah, hey, Kevy, I know I told you to get off my lot, you bum. No one wants your dopey scripts about teens getting slashed. That's over. That was the 80s. Beat it, pal. Oh, that's the guy who made the smash hit Scream? Actually, what I meant was I think you're super, super awesome. We really want to make your next movie. Well, and this is just Hollywood in a nutshell. And when they say Hollywood's fake, it's not that Hollywood's fake. Hollywood is a business. And Hollywood is always just looking for somebody who hits. And you go, well, how can I hit if you don't give me a shot? They're like, that's not my problem. Literally, they're just like, I don't know, you figure it out. Kevin Williamson hit gold with Scream. I mean, it's a phenomenon. It changed the trajectory of horror. It basically revitalized horror, brought it back from the dead. I mean, the 80s had sucked all the life out of horror, and everybody was kind of done with it, and it was just kind of petering through the 90s. Here comes 1996. Here comes Scream. Here comes Kevin Williamson's dynamite script featuring young, interesting characters who are battling a masked killer. And it worked. And I think, and we talked about this when we've talked about the Scream franchise at length on this show, and we've done quite a few episodes on it already. But that speciality that Kevin Williamson has of creating teen drama, of really getting you invested in those characters first and foremost, to me, that's what really changed the game. Obviously, Wes Craven's idea of like, a meta horror film and all that good stuff, like, yeah, I mean, that's a big part of it too. But let's be honest, if you were of the age where Scream came out, you were just like enamored with those characters. You had a big crush on one of them. You were way into all like Damon, I know grown ass adults who still lose their shit at the sight of Matthew Lillard. Like, I mean, I just saw him at Monsterpalooza. His line was wrapped around the block. Hell of a guy, too. Very nice guy, very cordial, kind of meeting everybody, shaking everybody's hand, being super nice with everybody. These movies, they created icons. And so immediately Hollywood was just like, we want another one. Kevin, you got anything else? What else you got? Well, actually, poof, I'm going to dust off this script that you literally threw down the Hollywood Hills and say, here you go. I think this is a good one. And he turned up with this movie, I Know What You Did Last Summer. And Damon, I don't know about you. I saw this in the theater. Did you?
I did. I do. I did see this in the theater. And a couple things about the whole passing on scripts, and I just want to mention this. Like, this is not to give Hollywood a pass, because I think I'm a member of the Writers Guild, so I definitely side on the side of the writers. But, you got to remember, like, HBO, probably the most iconic TV studio of the last 25 to 30 years when you think about The Sopranos, Game of Thrones, so on and so forth. I mean, let's not forget, they passed on Breaking Bad, and they passed on Sons of Anarchy, and they passed on Yellowstone. I mean, Yellowstone is the biggest TV show of the last 10 years. It's that and The Walking Dead. They're like, no, we don't really see a vision here. We're going to pass on that. Sons of Anarchy was a cultural phenomenon. You and I became friends a lot because of Sons of Anarchy.
Yeah.
Breaking Bad is hailed as one of the greatest TV shows of all time. HBO was like, no, we're good. So, I mean, it's possible to see a great thing and just not realize what it is and move on from it. So when I say that, I'm just pointing out the fact that, like, just because studios didn't see whatever they thought they saw in Kevin Williamson's other scripts doesn't mean they weren't good. It just means that for whatever reason, they weren't into making it, so they didn't make it. And I think, going back to your point about the interesting characters, I think whether you love this movie, The Faculty, Scream 2, the other, Teaching Mrs. Tingle, if you think about all the movies of this era that Kevin Williamson made, and I mentioned Dawson's Creek as well, that right there is the magic that man creates, is giving you characters to care about. And that was something that was wholly missing for the vast majority of the slashers in the late 80s, when that genre pretty much just petered out and died. We talk about yours. I know people probably get sick of hearing this. You're a Friday the 13th guy. I'm a Nightmare on Elm Street guy. Once you get past Alice in Nightmare on Elm Street 4 and then 5, which is a really forgettable bad movie, you just nothing. Like, Alice sticks out to you, but that's it. Like, there's no, like, in part 4 is good. I'm saying part 5. Once you get to part 5, you remember a couple of the deaths, you remember the kookiness of Freddy, and you remember Alice, but you don't remember anything else because the characters were terrible. And Freddy's Dead is just it's an abomination. I don't want to talk about it. And now New Nightmare revitalized things. That's also Wes Craven, who of course, did Scream, but that was using meta characters. He brought in, Heather Langenkamp to play Heather Langenkamp, Robert Englund to play Robert Englund. Friday the 13th, same thing. Like, once you get past Tina in 7, you can't name a character in any of the other Friday the 13th.
Oh, I mean, listen, 1 through 4 had interesting characters. 5 and 6 are kind of not full of characters. Tina was an outlier completely. Yeah. And boy, it just fell right down the well in 8. It got like 8 and Jason Goes to Hell and Jason X. Like, do you care about those characters? No, they're fodder for the blade. That's what they are. Like those movies gave up. Like, Tina's a complete anomaly, believe me. Like, Friday the 13th only had interesting storylines and characters in the first 4. They really did.
Yeah, and so one thing that Kevin Williamson achieved when he gave you Sidney, and he gave you Billy, and he gave you Stu, and he gave you Gale Weathers, and he gave you Dewey, and all those characters were characters you could attach yourself to beyond Ghostface, beyond the actual killer. And I mean, Scream was also great because of how it, kind of turned the genre on its head and kind of made fun of itself, and also, gave you a new iconic killer. There's just so many pieces of the puzzle that work for that movie. When you get into his future films, even if I'm a huge fan of The Faculty. I'm not a big fan of Teaching Mrs. Tingle. I've only seen that movie a couple of times, and it just didn't really hit with me. But say what you will about I Know What You Did Last Summer, the characters you remember. Like Julie is the smart, good girl who's also, I'm just being honest here, incredibly hot. It's Jennifer Love Hewitt at the peak of her powers. Freddie Prinze Jr., remember him as like the goody kind of, he's the goody guy, but not like and he's also kind of comes from the wrong side of the trash because his dad's a fisherman. And then you got Sarah Michelle Gellar, who's the beauty queen, and then you've got, of course, Barry, played by
Ryan Phillippe,
Ryan Phillippe, thank you, playing the star quarterback. And you introduce yourselves to them, and the first 10, 15 minutes of this movie, which, by the way, we are in full spoilers here. They're celebrating graduating. Yeah, they're graduating high school. They're down the beach celebrating, talking about their future plans. All Kevin Williamson is doing in that first 15 minutes before the actual plot device kicks in is giving you a reason to know and understand and either like or dislike these characters. And that is something that so many great slashers just get wrong, because we've talked about, even modern day slashers get it wrong. We've talked about a lot of films on this show where we just don't care about the characters. We don't care if you live, you die. You don't matter. You didn't give us anything to attach. And you can criticize Kevin Williamson up and down, and that's fine. But the one thing you can't criticize him for is at least he tries to give you characters to either care or not care about, in a passionate way, meaning you either like them or you hate them. He doesn't you don't not care about them. That's his talent. I think that's his greatest talent, if I'm being honest. He actually gives you compelling characters.
It's really interesting to me that this was a script prior to Scream, because I think, I've never gotten into the minutia of how Scream was made, but I think with Wes Craven's help, it made Scream what it is. I think there's a two-prong attack with that, and you don't have that here, and that's no disrespect to Jim Gillespie, who is a functioning and very capable director in his own right. But this was Kevin Williamson's older stuff. This was stuff that, I'm sure he did a fresh draft before they went into production and all that, but it was still an older idea. It wasn't as refined as Scream was. I think your scripts tend to, or at least you hope they tend to get better over time. Sometimes you get a clunker in there, it happens. But Kevin Williamson, being a writer, I'm sure would tell you, every new script is a little bit better than the last one. I learned something from the last one, and I made it better this time out. It's going to sound like a backhanded it's going to sound like an insult, not even a backhanded compliment. It's not. If this movie feels like a step backwards from Scream, I think there's more depth in the characters in Scream than there is in I Know What You Did Last Summer. But also, that makes total sense if you realize that was Kevin Williamson before Scream. That was actually things he wrote before Scream. Because when I sat down to watch this again, and I haven't revisited this movie in quite some time, I'm guessing over 20 years, easily. I was just like, wow, these characters are kind of wooden. They don't have the depth of a Sidney Prescott. They don't have all the richness that she has. They were a little more surface level. And even though I think they were both high school students, they're both high school graduates, right? Or at least right at the point.
They were celebrating their graduation in I Know What You Did.
Right. And I believe the kids in Scream were seniors in high school, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. So they're about the same age, but the characters just had a richness and a fullness. And again, I could probably contribute some of that to Wes Craven as well. Whereas in this movie, they feel a little more surface level. They really do. And even just the mechanical movement of how the movie unfolds. By the way, that's on Jim Gillespie. Now I'm bringing Jim Gillespie into the fold when I come with the criticism. The mechanics of the movie feel a little lighter. They don't have the punchiness and the depth and the bite of Scream. But Damon, let's be fair. We can't just spend the entire podcast comparing it to Scream. That's not fair. Scream is lightning in a bottle. Scream changed the game. So I'm not going to spend the rest of the episode trying to make it make sense with Scream. it is its own thing. It is its own entity. And for me on this rewatch, I got to be really honest with you, it didn't hold up the way I thought it would.
Um, I watched this movie with a lot of nostalgia. I admit this is the heyday of when I got back into horror. I brought that up on the show before. I just kind of gave up on horror when I was, in the early '90s, and just, I mean, horror was not doing well at that time, anyways. And then Scream revitalized everything for me. I saw Scream in the theater, and I immediately remembered, like, oh yeah, I love Freddy. I love this. I love that. I love horror. And it revitalized my passion for horror. I've said that many times. If not for Scream, I don't know we'd be doing this podcast today, if I'm being honest. That's how much Scream impacted me. Um, so I admit, like rewatching this, and I rewatched it because they dropped a 4K. I think either last year or the year before last, and I bought it and I watched it. Then it was the first time I'd seen the movie in probably 10 or 15 years. Um, and I wanted to watch the 4K, and I rewatched it on 4K again last night to get ready for the podcast. And I honestly didn't really need to watch it. I remembered all the beats of the movie. I remember the story, the plot, the characters. Like nothing really like stood out to me totally different from what I remember 2 years ago. Um, but I admit, like this movie is a just a classic slasher without a whole lot of glue holding it together. When I say the characters, like when I talk about the characters giving you a reason to like or hate them, I would still argue this is 1,000 times better than most '80s slashers in terms of giving you characters, because I can't even name you characters from a lot of the '80s slashers. At least this one gives you something to grab onto when you meet Barry and you meet all the other characters in this movie. That being said, it when you say it felt like a step back, you're absolutely right. Because if you went to Scream, and I know you don't want to keep comparing it, but when you go to Scream and you go to this, you're thinking of the next level, and this feels like
Right.
a more basic slasher. Now, that being said, it still works as a slasher. And as I've said on this show 1,000 times, and now for the 1,000th time, I'm a slasher hardcore. I love slasher films. It's my favorite genre. And this was a better, more involved, better acted, for the most part, slasher than the last slashers that I got coming out of the '80s. Now, I know people are going to say, well, hold on, that's not really a compliment. It is, because you got to remember, when my love of horror kind of died, it was with Freddy's Dead, it was with Jason Goes to Hell. Those movies are dog shit. Okay, and you want to talk about just pounding the love of a genre out of you with those movies? That's what it'll do to you. Like, that was where I was like, God, this is so bad. I don't even want to watch it anymore. I'm moving on. I'm going to go do other things. And then Scream brought me back, and then when I saw I Know What You Did Last Summer, I was like, yeah, it's not as good as that, and it's not as good as this, but it's still fun. The characters are good. There's really pretty people, and there's some decent. There's a decent plot. There's actually a plot. May not be the most in-depth plot ever, but it's certainly better than a lot of the slashers I've seen in the '80s. So when you say it doesn't hold up, you're not wrong, but I also hold this film in a certain regard because that '96 to like 2002 period of horror for me,
Yeah.
when I was in high school going into college, those films, there is a certain nostalgia that I hold dear to my heart with those films. Now, I know there's a lot of people who are younger than us who watch this, and they love I Know What You Did Last Summer. They love this movie.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But I'm saying I still enjoyed it. I absolutely still enjoyed it. But I also understand the criticisms. But I'm telling you up front that this is a nostalgia thing for me. I'm not denying it's a nostalgia thing, because I loved it in '97. And there's just a certain place in my heart where I'm like, oh, I do remember, like, this was like a warm, fuzzy blanket of something I needed at that time. And so I'm not going to tell you it's a perfect film. It's certainly not a perfect film. And it's certainly a step back in terms of this just feels like, I wouldn't say generic. It feels like a better slasher than what we got at the tail end of the '80s. That's when the slasher genre kind of died. It's better than that, okay? It's better than those. But it certainly is not as good as what we would get down the road, if that makes sense. Like, there's much better slasher films that would come after this. But this, in a way, as you said, like, I know this is a weird comparison, and I know, I'm sorry, folks, that you get sick of hearing me talk about my guy Tarantino. It's on my heart today because of Michael Madsen.
R.I.P.
Now, and to be clear, when I say this, I am not saying this film is anywhere near the same level of these movies. But when Tarantino released Reservoir Dogs, everyone's like, "Oh man, what a great filmmaker! He's got a bright future." And he made that on no budget, and it was just a very like it was almost like a home movie project in a way. And he's like, "Oh, and everyone loved it, but it didn't win awards. It didn't blow up." Then Pulp Fiction came, and Tarantino became a household name. You knew Tarantino by his last name. If I Know What You Did Last Summer came out before Scream, they'd be like, this guy's got something. It's not there yet. He's not fully evolved, but he's got something. And then Scream drops, they'd be like, oh shit, Pulp Fiction. So that's what this, as you said, this feels like a step back. That's because if this had come out first, we'd say, he's got something, but he's not quite there yet. And then you drop Scream, you're like, fuck yeah, he got it. He got it right. That's how this feels.
It does. Now, here's how and I appreciate that you're admitting like there's just a lot of nostalgia behind that, because I think some people have trouble like rectifying that. They go, no, it's a good movie. No, you like it. Okay. You like Jason X. It's not a good movie, just like objectively not a good movie. But interestingly enough, and I'll bring up Jason X and I'll even bring up Jason Goes to Hell for these two reasons. Brace yourself, Damon. Talk about comparing it to Tarantino. Now we're on the other end of the spectrum. What those movies lack in character development, in interesting storylines, and good acting, they delivered in great kills. I think that's the one thing you can't take away from Friday the 13th is like they still slash the hell out of people. Like that's why I consider them king of the slashers, because at the end of the day, yes, their stories are pretty stupid or non-existent, but they slash hard, right? And even in movies like Freddy's Dead and Dream Child, like there's a creativity there that they're attempting, but it's not working, right? When something like this in particular feels like Scream Zero, it's like Scream without the sugar. Like, it's like, okay, I guess I'll have it with my side of pizza, but I'm not going to just drink a can of it. You know what I mean? Like I'm not going to enjoy it the way I want to enjoy it. And we talk about maybe some more recent films like Until Dawn, which I was like, you know what? This is pretty wooden. The story's kind of muddy, but man, those kills were good and they kept us on the hook for that stuff. The Fisherman, what do we call him, by the way? Do we call him the Fisherman?
They don't really have a name for him. It's just the killer. They don't really have a title.
Yeah, whoever the guy is in the classic. Now, that's the one thing I do like about I Know What You Did Last Summer. He's got the cool fisherman's, duster and the big hat and all that stuff. So I was like,
slicker and the hat.
The slicker. Yeah, it's a good look. And he's got the hook in the hand. It feels very classic, old wives' tale, silhouette. So I could appreciate that. But the kills are pretty light. I mean, if we're being real, the kills are very light in this movie.
I don't want to interrupt you. I just wanted to throw this out there. So last night, as I was watching the 4K, I decided to watch. There's couple bonus features on the 4K, and one of them is an interview with Jim Gillespie, the director. He's a Scottish director. I'm not sitting here like I don't want to just point fingers, but I'm pointing fingers. Blame him for that, because he actually said like he didn't want to show blood. He wanted to turn this into more of like a murder mystery and not a slasher. And we always talk about how the studio interferes and messes things up. The studio was actually the one saying, you got to put some blood in here, guy. Like, this is a slasher film. Like, that scene where Elsa gets her throat cut in the store and she turns around and you see that little splat of blood, that was actually done as a secondary shoot. Originally, there was no blood. The kill happened and she's just dead against the window. The studio was like, how are you going to slash her throat and there's no blood? And so that little, like, kind of bad splurt of blood on the window is from the studio saying, we got to have blood here. So, I'm not trying to cast aspersions on Jim Gillespie, although I am. Blame him, because he's like, I don't want like a bloody, gory slasher. I want it to be like a murder mystery. And so I think that was kind of like the battle of like, actually it talked about the Johnny Galecki kill, Max, when he did the hook at the beginning. That was added later because he didn't want that. And the studio's like, you gotta have a kill to set this up. And so Max getting the hook through his face, that was the studio kind of insisting upon that happening.
Yeah, and Damon, it's okay to blame Jim Gillespie, because when you take on the moniker of director, you tacitly agree to be blamed for everything wrong with the movie, even when the studio is doing all the wrong things. In this case, they weren't. In this case, the studio was like, "We're making a slasher," and I remember seeing a couple of quotes from him saying, "I really didn't want to make that kind of movie." It's like, well, pal, then you shouldn't have said yes. You know,
Yeah.
like this is what we were doing, and especially coming off the heels of Scream, which has a couple of gnarly moments in it too. So he knew what he was getting into. But I wanted to read this little quote from Roger Ebert, which I already sent to you, but I wanted to read it here because I thought it was very funny because I thought it was very apropos for this movie. And Roger said at the time that it was a tedious series of obligatory scenes in which non-essential characters are murdered with a bloody hook. Now, Roger was not always a big fan of horror. And he criticized it a lot. He criticized a lot of things that he eventually turned tail on and realized, oh, you know, maybe I was too hard on it back then. But I trusted him because I thought he like kind of he dove deeper, and he really hit me with this where it's like, really in this movie, the non-essential characters die. And again, that's whether it's a story issue or a director issue or studio issue. It's still the issue because the final product is what I'm judging at the end of the day. And at the end of the day, it was like there felt like there was no real stakes because I kept thinking that Barry, Helen, Julie, or Ray were gonna get killed. Like somebody's got to die. And they were like, no, 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 we'll just mess with them. We'll just like, we'll cut Helen's hair. Ooh. And I was like, you're playing with me right now. And then it reminded me of a recent movie that we had both watched, which was Fear Street Prom Queen, which sort of like, it just didn't deliver on any front. This movie is still better than Fear Street Prom Queen. Fear Street Prom Queen was offensively bad. Like I was, it's the first time in a long time that I was actually upset by a movie. But if I'm being honest, certain issues that I had with Fear Street Prom Queen are here. They're present in I Know What You Did Last Summer. I just think there is, even for me, a bit of a nostalgia factor because I looked at like how it was filmed, and it was filmed with that classic mid '90s cinematic style that I sort of yearn for. Like I miss it. You know, I miss the way film was treated back then, and it creates a different kind of a magic and all that stuff. So even for me, there's a little bit more forgiveness over this movie. For these are actors I all know and I all enjoy, and so there's more things I forgive that like if I grew up with all the prom queen people, I might forgive that movie for some of that stuff. But the problems are similar.
They are, and I'm not disagreeing with a lot of what you're saying. I think that we talked about this when we reviewed Megan a couple of years ago, and we said we liked it. It was a good movie. We had fun with it. We just wish it had gone a little bit more hardcore. It was a PG-13, and they figured out it should have been tailored towards a teen audience, and it worked. By the way, we were wrong in the assessment saying it needed to be more hardcore because it ended up making $181 million at the box office. Clearly, there was a younger audience teeter that kind of tailored to that movie, and it worked out really well. Not so much in the sequel. So, like, I think that a lot of the problems with this movie really come down to some of the execution. I don't like. I know you said like a lot of the characters are surface level. They're surface level, but they're still far more memorable than your average slasher. Like I said, you remember Barry, you remember Julie, you remember Ray, you remember, you remember Helen. And you do remember some of the beats and some of the interactions of the characters, and you do feel there is like a ingrained relationship between many of them, even though you only spend about 15 minutes with them before you fast forward ahead to 1 year later. Um, I'm not saying it's perfect. I'm not certainly comparing it to better films. I'm just saying like it's better than the average slasher. But because it is a slasher, you still expect some of those slashy moments, which are the kills. And I'm not saying you need to have Drew Barrymore's guts hanging out of a tree,
Right.
and you don't necessarily need to have someone getting their head lopped off by a hacksaw or by a machete. But like, there's so many moments, like the cutaway of when Barry dies. It's like, why? Why are we cutting away? Like,
I know.
and like the best one. I know I'm ruining a category. I'm sorry, but the best one is when he kills Elsa and he drags her by her midsection on the hook. That's the
Yeah.
coolest looking kill. That and why am I
Max,
forgetting his
right?
name? Max. Yeah,
Yeah.
that one and Max are the only two kind of gnarly kills. They're not really even gnarly, but they're gnarly-ish. They're like on
Yeah.
and I am I wrong to think this movie was rated R, right? This is R
It's
rated
a
movie.
rated R movie. That's the
How?
other thing. I
How is it
know.
rated R? Like in modern times, this feels like a totally PG-13 movie. Like I don't understand. Like Jaws was rated PG in the '70s, and this is like that had way more blood than this did. And
The
there's not
Dark
really
Knight's PG-13 and it's more hardcore than this movie.
there's not really a lot of cursing, and there's certainly no nudity. I'm just like, why was this R? Like I really like. I understand. Like it almost felt like because I do remember in that '90s era the Tipper Gore,
Yeah.
the parental advisory, and like everything was like censorship at that point, so maybe that was part of what movies were at that point, like they're just like, oh, it's a horror
Maybe.
movie, R-rated. But that like this, I think the frustrating part about I Know What You Did Last Summer is I still love this movie, I do, and I admit it is a nostalgia play for me, but my criticisms come down to how good it could have been. And I know that's an unfair assessment because this is the movie
Yeah.
we got. But I do think Jim Gillespie, his touch on this movie, he didn't get it. He didn't
Yeah.
get what this movie needed to be. And I think if you take the plot as it is, which it's not the most it is a cool title and it is a cool concept. An accident, four teenagers are celebrating their graduation, they're driving their car and they hit a guy and kill him. And they're all on the cusp of like going off and making something of themselves, right? Julie's like the brain. She's very Breakfast Club. She's the brain. Barry's the football player. Helen's the beauty queen, and Ray is like the super smart kid from the wrong side of the tracks who's about to go to like a big school and like make something of himself. And they realize like, hey, if we get busted for this, our lives are over. Like your scholarship goes away. You're no longer moving to New York to become an actor. My dream of going to college is like they're like we can't fuck this up. So they're like we got to cover this up. They dump the body and they think they've gotten away with it. And then 1 year later they start getting notes saying, "I know what you did last summer." It's not a intricate plot, but it's a plot that works. Like it's a very like it's
Right.
an interesting plot that works. It's a device that works. Julie goes home. She opens an unmarked letter that says, "I know what you did last summer." It works. It's a really simple yet effective plot. But then the story just becomes like a murder mystery. Like who is doing it? Who's after us? Because they think it can't be the guy we killed because he's dead. So they go on this search to figure out is it someone from his family trying to get revenge. Once again, I like the murder mystery element of it. I don't mind that. But it's still kind of surface level. So you got to give me something else to grab onto. And in a slasher movie, it's the kills, it's the gore, it's the slashiness of it all. And this film fails to do that in a lot of ways because you think and I think that's the frustrating part. When he kills Barry, you're like, come on. When he kills Helen, you're like, come on. Like, give
Well,
me
he doesn't kill
something
them.
here.
That's the thing. He doesn't kill them. That's the
Well, he does
frustration of the
eventually.
movie.
He eventually kills Barry, eventually kills Helen later in the movie. But I'm saying like
Yeah, eventually, yeah.
when they die, they just kind of die, and you don't like you don't even see Barry die. Like you literally just see a pile of blood, and that's it. Like you don't really see him die.
Yeah.
Like if you're gonna finally knock off one of the main characters, give me like something to like. Oh my God, they killed Barry.
That's
Oh my
right.
God, they killed.
Damon, no wonder I'm like, they didn't kill him. The kills happen completely off screen. Like two of the main characters you never see die. Nowadays that would tell you what? That they're still alive. But then there is the scene in the boat later on where you see Barry in the ice, right? If I'm not mistaken.
You do see him kill Helen in the alley, like when he gets Helen, she's
But
trying to run for help.
They're kind of behind the tires and you don't see anything.
Yeah, but I mean, you definitely like they show her getting stabbed, so you do see her die, but you don't like it's not like super bloody and it's not super detailed by any means. Barry's worse because Barry's in the balcony. You just see him you see him scream or whatever, and then it just goes goes away, and then you see a pile of blood. Like what? Huh? Why are we not showing his blood? Like they did the Max thing, and they showed Max's dead body in Julie's trunk, and you're like, oh, okay, cool, dead body. And then they don't show the other major characters actually getting offed, which is weird. It's a weird choice.
Yeah,
because those are the ones that have the more impact of them dying.
But the one positive of this movie is that the murder mystery aspect of it does get interesting for a moment, and that's because Julie and Helen and I would say Ray to some respect, because Barry's like, fuck this shit, like cover it up. He's like the jock kind of asshole. So he just wants everyone to go. He's a kind of a sociopath, so he just wants everyone to forget about it. But they can't, right? Julie can't let this go. She was a good girl, and it ruined kind of her life. You know, like her first year of college was kind of a mess. She never got outside. She sort of became kind of pale and withdrawn, and I think implied that she was slightly goth. You know what I mean? Like she was just sort of like not into the world anymore, and it's understandable. She was really traumatized from what happened that night. But her and Helen and Barry, or excuse me, and Ray decide that they're going to try and do some digging on this. And really, it's really more Julie and Helen than anybody. They do some digging, and where that takes the movie is a little bit interesting, right? They try to figure out who it is they killed, and then they start putting the pieces together that this person died on that night and all this stuff, and then it gets sort of a twist and turn. Could it be this woman Melissa Egan, who is what's the name of the guy they thought died?
David Egan. It's his sister. Yes, David Egan.
Yeah,
Who died? Yeah.
they thought they killed David Egan. And so they were like, maybe it's his sister. And his sister, played by the late Anne Heche, sort of gives them the willies. You know, she seems a bit off and crazy. And they're like, well, she has the potential. And so they're trying to really figure it out. And then at one point, they figure out that David had a friend. And they're trying to figure out who that friend might be, because maybe that friend saw them do it that night.
It was Melissa. So the way I want to make sure I get this right.
Yeah, please get it right.
So a year before David Egan died, he had gotten into a car accident and his girlfriend Susie died. He survived, Susie died. And 1 year later, that's where David Egan was found on that cliff, and that's he died, and they assumed they killed him. They track down his sister Melissa Egan, and Melissa tells them that she talks about her brother and like he was a great guy, but then he had this accident, he killed Susie, and like everyone kind of turned against him because of like, you're a terrible person, you killed your girlfriend, you're a piece of shit. And everyone kind of turns against him, and he was guilty over his girlfriend dying. And so the idea was that David eventually committed suicide. And she said soon after he died, this guy showed up named Billy Blue, who showed up asking questions, and they got close, and Melissa and Billy ended up having a bit of a relationship for a little while, and then he just couldn't be around her because he said he was a friend of David's, and it was too familiar to be around her. And then the big twist, of course, you find out later, is that Billy was actually Ray. Ray had shown up way early because he never left town. Ray felt guilty, so he's tracked her down, and then they actually ended up hooking up. But he felt guilty. He's like, I killed your brother. This is what Ray's thinking. He's like, I can't keep
piece of shit, Ray.
I can't keep banging his sister. I killed her brother. So he gets out of there. So they're thinking like Billy Blue, this guy Billy Blue, who's he? Like, it's a guy who had a thing for Melissa. He was a friend of David's. Is he the one killing people? And so like and then the murder mystery as it unravels, if you want me to just go ahead and talk about it.
Oh yeah, please.
The murder mystery as it unravels, you find out that when they dumped the body down into the marsh, into the water, into the ocean, they saw the guy had a tattoo of Susie on his arm, and they like just assumed that's David because that was his girlfriend. Come to find out, Susie's dad, Susie Willis, her dad Ben, killed David. He chucked him in the fucking ocean and killed him for killing his daughter, and that's who they hit on the highway that night, right after he had killed David. And so They dumped Ben Willis in the water thinking he was dead. He wasn't actually dead. He, kind of came from his murky grave and came back. And I guess, I think this is where the plot gets a little weird because, while I do like the twist, it's not David Egan. It's not even really related to David Egan. This guy actually hated David Egan. He wanted him dead, too, because he killed his daughter. It's almost like, okay, I understand you. So you want revenge for them hitting you and dumping you in the water and leaving you for dead, but it really has nothing to do with your daughter, has nothing to do with David Egan. It's just you're like, fuck these kids for hitting me in the middle of the road and leaving me for dead.
Fuck these kids for giving me what I deserve.
Yeah, but it's like that twist. I'm like, okay, it's cool in a way because it's like, okay, it had nothing to do with that murder, and they didn't actually kill anyone. In the end, you find out they didn't really kill anyone. David was killed by Ben Willis, and they hit Ben Willis. But then you're thinking about it, you're like, well, hold on now. He got away with murder. These kids think they killed David Egan. So wouldn't you be better served not fucking with them? Why would you want to trudge this up? Because in a way, if you let sleeping dogs lie, these 4 kids think they killed David. And if anyone ever confesses and they're like, we did it, they're going to go to the cops and say, we killed David Egan. So now Ben Willis is completely off the hook. Because he's the
No
one who actually killed
shit.
David Egan. Like, I'm just like, the interest, like, it's like taking things one, two, like, we talked about this
Yeah.
with Founders Day, the
Yes.
slasher Founders Day. We were like, this movie had bones of what could have
Yeah.
been a good movie, but they just tried way too hard to make, like, this really, like, like, intricate plot and twists and turns and like who's the killer and what's their motivation. We're like, you tried way too hard. I feel like this one tried way too hard to give us like the twist on who the killer
Yeah.
was.
Like he could have let them telltale heart their way into making him like scot free. Be like, we killed him. He's out there in the ocean somewhere. We don't know what happened to him, but like we think he's after us or whatever. At the end of the day, they would have just admitted to killing him, and he would have been scot free. But I had to write it down because it was so funny to me. Because it ultimately culminates in Julie thinks it's Ray because of the Billy Blue is the name of his boat, and she's like, oh my god, the person this whole time was Ray, and they had a big falling out after the thing, and so they just figured this made the most sense that it ruined Ray's life, so Ray's going to ruin their life. And so she's running from Ray, and then this guy comes out of nowhere and clotheslines Ray and stops him, and he's like, get on my boat, get out of here real quick. And she's like, yeah, of course. She's being chased by Ray. She gets on his boat, the guy gets on the boat, sails out, and he's like, guess what, I'm the killer. And you're like, okay, cool. And then Ray comes to save the day in his little schooner. He gets up there with his little dinghy and jumps onto the boat and helps save the day. And it's all this good stuff. And the guy falls into the water, and you believe he's dead. For all they know, his arm gets chopped off and they can't find his body, similar to what happened a year ago. And then I had to write this down. I go, so ultimately, they didn't kill anyone, but then they killed the guy who killed the guy they thought they killed because that guy killed that guy's daughter. Like that's the pathway for all of it. And I was like, that's a lot of shit.
That sounds like the plot of that Seinfeld episode where Kramer does the Real Peterman reality tour, and George explains to him. He's like, "So the reality tour is the real Peterman, which is you, is based on the other Peterman, but that's not Peterman. The real Peterman is." He does the whole thing, and Jerry's like, and Kramer's like, "Exactly," and Kramer goes, and Jerry goes, "So 37.50 for Three Musketeers." He's like. That's kind of what it reminds me of. You say like he killed this guy to kill this guy. Yeah, it's the Spaceballs. I'm your brother's cousin, mother's ex-roommate. What does that make us? Absolutely nothing. Because really, Ben should have just let sleeping dogs lie. Because these kids would have just confessed the murder he committed.
Yeah, Ben's a dope,
and he would have completely got away with it. And like, if I'm gonna do a rewrite of The Living Dead, it would be actually make Ray the killer. Because if you make Ray the killer, you find out that he infiltrated David Egan's life out of guilt and ends up hooking up with his sister and under this name Billy Blue. That revealed that it's his boat, and you're like, oh shit. Ray was Billy Blue. Like, he hooked up with his sister, felt guilty about killing David. Now, you can still somehow interlace the dad being involved in finding out that, like, that could be, like, the final twist of, like, they didn't actually kill David Egan. This guy did, but he's not coming after them. He just reveals, like, he was doing what we're saying. Like, he was just laying back, like, hey, I didn't do anything.
Yeah.
You kids are going to take the blame for what I did. But if you make Ray the killer, like, you fucked up my life, we killed someone, and we took no responsibility for it. I want to bang his sister, so I'm going to come back and wipe all you people out. That actually would have been a cooler twist, because you're like, oh shit, Ray is killing his friends over guilt of what they did together and tried to cover it up. I think that would have been a cooler twist.
I would have liked that better. And even he would have been like, I know who we killed last summer was the dad who was getting his revenge on David Egan. Like, you're all wrong. Like, I know, like, now I know everything that happened because he had time with Melissa. Like, I think it would have been a cooler, more shocking ending. But it makes sense because, Freddie Prinze Jr., he's kind of baby-faced, bad boy from the wrong side of the tracks. You don't want to make him the villain. That's not what you would typically do. You do it in Scream. That's exactly what you do in Scream. Billy Loomis is the bad boy from the wrong side of the tracks, and it turns out he was the killer. Like, that's interesting. They didn't want to do that this time around. For all I know, there was a draft where he was the killer, and maybe that worked. But yeah, this whole, we killed the guy who killed the guy they thought they killed, but they killed the other guy because this guy and that guy, it's too much. And it
I'm
lands with a, it doesn't even land with a thud. It lands with like a little piddle.
I'm actually getting angry with you right now, Patrick. I'm angry at you because half hour ago I'm like, I love this movie. It's so nostalgic, and then I'm talking myself into criticizing it more because I'm actually what's the I can't remember this TV show or movie where he goes, "You made my girlfriend think."
I'm sorry, Damon. I can't help it.
You made me think about it. I'm like, fuck, this plot doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. You
When you
fucked it
put
up
enough
for me.
distance, I'm sorry, Damon. That's what happens. You put enough distance between yourself and something. It's like, remember when we did the episode for Killer Clowns from Outer Space? I was so excited because I'd grown up on that movie. I watched the shit out of that movie. I mean, outside of Friday the 13th, I think I watched Killer Clowns more than any movie. I was so excited to talk about it on the podcast. And I was like, this movie's fucking boring and stupid. Like, it's not even good. I can't even tell you that this is a good movie. You may have nostalgia for it, but I have to be dead honest. This is not a good movie.
Now I'll still say like there's still a lot more I like about I Know What You Did Last Summer. Like I still had an enjoyable watch rewatching it the other night because at the end of the day it is a very breezily easy to watch slasher. Like the plot twists and the lack of good kills kind of kind of kill it from being a higher level slasher. But if I really drill down on some of the plot devices from the 80s and movies I love, I mean, you really have to bend your mind around like some of the reasons they give for people killing people. So yeah, when you really like, and I think that's the frustrating part rewatching it now, talking about it, where you've just fucked up the movie for me, Patrick, is that device, the one we came up with, the Ray being it's not. I mean, they thought it was Ray. If Ray actually was the killer,
Yeah.
it would have worked, and it would have worked well. And I think that's what's frustrating is you watch that, you think about it, you're like, yeah, like because they didn't just reveal him. Like they had this innocuous Billy Blue. They didn't know who Billy Blue was until she saw the boat. And when she saw the boat and realized he was banging David Egan's sister, oh shit! Like that's a good revelation. They just took it. They took it that one step further, and you're like, no, we didn't really need Ben Willis and his weird grimacing. Like, when he meets Julie on the pier and he knocks down Ray and he's like, "Get in the boat, child. I'll save you." And you're like, "Oh Jesus, like, that's a tough notch. I'll save you, child." I'm like, "Ooh." But yeah,
imagine
like,
if you go ahead.
when you really think about it, like, why did he want to kill? Like, I understand, like, just because they left him for dead, okay, but
Sure.
really, they helped him get away with murder.
I know he would have been like, "Fuck, okay, I fucking hate those kids, but damn, they would have they saved my ass." You know, another thing that pisses me off is that in the end, they still don't learn their lesson. They still lie, and I was like, "Oh, all that guilt and all that heaviness that is like crushed Julie for that entire year. At the end, she lies again," and I was like, Jesus, okay, so they don't learn their lesson at all. They go, yeah, we didn't do nothing. It was all the fishermen. We didn't do jack shit wrong.
Yeah, they didn't really learn a lesson there. Now, I will say the one formula, and forgive me for being a guy, but the one element that these movies do, these mid '90s, late '90s slashers, is they started to get young up and coming named actors and actresses, and most of the people in all these movies went on to have pretty successful careers.
Yeah.
Like if you think about Scream, you think about The Faculty, you think about this movie, you think about Teaching Mrs. Tingle, which was Katie Holmes. Like a lot of these actors, these hot young actors, go on to have pretty successful careers. Like Ryan Phillippe has had a pretty successful career. Originally, I don't know if you saw who was originally going to play Julie. It was Reese Witherspoon. Reese Witherspoon was offered it, and she turned it down. But when she turned it down, she's like, "I think you should talk to my boyfriend, Ryan Phillippe," and that's how they got him in. And even then, so I don't know I don't know how much you read about the casting, but like every single casting in this movie, the studio pushed back on except one. Ryan Phillippe was 5'10", kind of scrawny, and they're like, he doesn't look like he could be. They wanted a big 6'2", like hulking football player type. But they've battled and got him. Freddie Prinze Jr. was kind of an unknown. They didn't really like him, and they're like, They wanted Reese Witherspoon. They didn't want Jennifer Love Hewitt, and they fought for her. The only one they didn't fight for, which was the last person cast, was Sarah Michelle Gellar. And even then, they're like, I don't know. She's Buffy. I don't know if it really works. She did the screen test, and everyone's like, "Oh fuck, she gets it. She's the one." And I know that Jennifer Love Hewitt originally auditioned for Helen, and Sarah Michelle Gellar was going to audition for Julie. But when they saw the screen test, they're like, "No, no, that's Helen." And she was the
Yeah.
one when they saw the screen test. They're like, "Oh, she's got it." Like Sarah Michelle Gellar has got it. But everyone else, they're like, "Nah, we don't want her. We don't want him." But then when you get the cast in there, and I know this is very surface level, Patrick, but I'm sure the girls of that era will agree, and certainly us, the guys of that era, will agree. I had zero complaints about an hour and a half with Jennifer Love Hewitt and Sarah Michelle Gellar. So I'm just saying, I'm sure there are some people out there, guys, girls, whoever, like Freddie Prinze Jr. and Ryan Phillippe.
Oh yeah.
We need another scene of him in the shower after working out at the gym. It was a cast full of pretty people, but also a cast of pretty people who went on to have careers, which was different because when you go back and think about the '80s slashers, I mean,
yeah, most of them didn't. Let's be
like
real.
Corey Feldman, I guess, like
yeah, he might be the biggest name that came out of the '80s. Really,
Patricia Arquette was the biggest. She was the biggest.
She did well, but you know that it was almost like an anomaly for her. Like
and
that.
Lawrence Fishburne being in that movie, like that movie had some hitters for like weird reasons, like getting Lawrence Fishburne and Patricia Arquette in a slasher of the '80s is like, what? How'd that work out? But yeah, like these movies, like most of these people, like Jennifer Love Hewitt is still on TV today. Like she walked away to start a family, but she was always prevalent. Sarah Michelle Gellar has never gone away. She's been starring in stuff. She's in the new Dexter show. By the way, Sarah Michelle Gellar is a vampire because she never fucking ages. I swear to God, she looks the same now as she did in fucking 1997. Freddie Prinze Jr. retired from acting. Like, he didn't want to do it anymore, so he left and started doing, like, pro wrestling podcasts and shit. Now he's coming back to do I Know What You Did Last Summer, the remake or the reboot or whatever we're going to talk about. And Ryan Phillippe's been pretty much an omnipresent guy forever. He's never really gone away. Obviously, Johnny Galecki went on to do The Big Bang Theory. Anne Heche had a big career. Sadly, she's gone. Everyone in this movie, like, pretty much went on to have careers. Actually, Jim Gillespie's the one person who did. If you look at his IMDb page, it pretty much stops after this movie. He doesn't really do much after this. But yeah, like, and that's the difference of these 90s slashers. Because, like, obviously you think about, Nev Campbell, you think about Courtney Cox, you think about, David Arquette, you think about Josh Hartnett and The Faculty, and, go so on and so forth. These are all hot, pretty people who actually were talented enough to go on to have big careers.
Yeah, the mid '90s into the 2000s and even 2010s made a lot of careers for a lot of people because horror was a great jumping off point at the basic because it was different because Scream changed everything. Because Scream was a blockbuster movie. It wasn't just a horror movie, it was an event movie, and that created this fervor, and you were like, "Well, who are the new hot young actors, or who are the actors that are on television that we can transfer to these movies?" And that was something that wasn't always done. It used to be you either do TV or you do movies, and the lines got blurred more and more and more. And now you see even like prestige actors, guys like Gary Oldman now do 5-6 seasons of television now. Like Meryl Streep's done television at this point. So now there's crossover. That all kind of came out of that mid 90s to late 90s thing. And so that's cool to see. And that kind of creates a bit of a nostalgia because you're just like, well, yeah, but it's Sarah Michelle Gellar. It's Jennifer Love Hewitt. Like, these aren't just anybody. These are names. These are real names. These are real staples. So you do get a little bit more of like, it feels like more vindication because you're like, well, it wasn't just a bunch of nobodies. Like, I shout to the rooftops, I love Lar Park Lincoln. Everybody's like, who? Rest in peace, Lar. We miss you. But she was important to me. She didn't break out and have a giant career. She wasn't Buffy the Vampire Slayer. You know what I mean? Like, these people went on to have real careers and real presence. And so that's kind of the cheat code of the late 90s, early 2000s, where they had these great good-looking people. That was the formula. Good-looking people, good actors, decent storylines that eventually launch everybody's career.
I have to bring this up right before we get to categories because this is of our formative age. We are teenagers when this comes out. Every teenager has a celebrity crush. Now, I'm not going to lie and say even now at my age now I have celebrity crushes. I think we all do. But when we're teenagers, you're like, oh, you have a celebrity crush. Now, I fully admit I've never had a celebrity crush bigger, badder, better than the crush I had on Jennifer Love Hewitt. Between this movie and Can't Hardly Wait, she was like icon status for me. Like I was a Jennifer Love Hewitt stan. I was 100% like Maxim magazine, like anything she did, I was like, ooh,
Yeah.
Jennifer Love Hewitt. She was like my girl. So who is your like late 90s, early mid 90s like celebrity crush? Because I know for a fact mine was Jennifer Love Hewitt.
I mean, I want to say it was Jennifer Love Hewitt. Like I was never that type. Like I didn't have somebody's poster on my wall or anything like
I
that. I
didn't
mean, I
have, no,
just, yeah,
I just thought
yeah,
she was like, yeah, I just thought she was gorgeous. Like I was like, oh my god, like she's perfect.
yeah. I mean, I would probably just echo that. I mean, like I don't think I had any sort of fixation at the time. I really don't. But she comes to mind.
Yeah, yeah,
It's a lackluster answer, but I think that's the truth.
yeah, she was the it girl for me in the late 90s, which is funny because coming out of this movie, like, and when I really think about it, because Jennifer Love Hewitt has said in interviews like she doesn't really love horror, so she only did this movie and she did the sequel. I Still Know What You Did Last Summer. Now she's doing this reboot, which we're going to talk about in a little bit. She's not done horror, which is kind of funny because like the two movies I know her from best are this and Can't Hardly Wait, which I love. Can't Hardly Wait. But Sarah Michelle Gellar is an actor that I became a massive fan of, and like because I did not watch Buffy when it came out. I watched Buffy. This is going back now, like more than 10 years ago. But I watched Buffy, and now I'm a Buffy obsessive. Like Buffy is one of my all time favorite TV shows. And she did a show with Robin Williams, a very short lived sitcom that I really enjoyed. She's on Dexter now. She's done some other stuff, and I love Sarah. Like I mean I did see Cruel Intentions, which of course was like another one of her
Oh
big
yeah.
movies that era. And Ryan Phillippe's in that as well. But I now I'm a massive Sarah Michelle Gellar fan. Like I follow her on Instagram and like when she's doing this Buffy reboot. Like I love Sarah Michelle Gellar. She's become like one of my favorite like it actresses. Like I always want to watch everything she does. And it's kind of funny back when this came out, like she was almost like, oh yeah, I kind of know who Sarah Michelle Gellar is, but Jennifer Love Hewitt, like Jennifer Love Hewitt's the one. Now, like I'm not saying I'm not a fan of Jennifer Love Hewitt. I'm just saying she hasn't done projects that I've been like super interested in. And Sarah Michelle Gellar, between Buffy and then other things she's done, she's remained like omnipresent as like one of my favorite actors.
I mean, Buffy doesn't die. I mean, come on, like Buffy persists. You know, like in a way, she's the biggest of all these names by far because of the passion and the fervor of the Buffy fans. You can't get around that.
And she never ages. I swear to God, she never. It's fucking insane. She swear to God, she looks the same now as she did in '97. Patrick, let's get into some categories for this movie. Let's kick things off as we do each and every week here on the show, and let's talk about best performance. These are young actors who all went on to have careers of some kind, form, or fashion, and big movies, by the way, like Freddie Prinze Jr. and Sarah Michelle Gellar did the Scooby-Doo movies, which were written by James Gunn. Those were massive, massive movies. Ryan Phillippe did a lot of stuff, including Cruel Intentions, which was huge. Obviously, you mentioned Sarah Michelle Gellar is probably the biggest star of them all, and then Jennifer Love Hewitt is still on. She's on. Is it 911? Is that the show she's on now? I think it's the TV.
Oh, is that the show she's on now?
Yeah, she's
Okay.
on. It's like 9 seasons deep, and she's like one of the main people, and it's like a big deal. Like it gets huge ratings. I don't watch it, but I know it's a huge deal. So
No, yeah, that's a big
um,
show. The 911 series is a big series.
yeah, so they're all still very much prevalent today. Like they're still acting and still doing their thing today. But when it comes to 1997's I Know What You Did Last Summer, Patrick, who is your best performance?
My best performance goes to Jennifer Love Hewitt, who plays Julie. Listen, the whole movie is weighted around her because really, on that fateful night when they ran over this guy, she was the only one who was like, "There's no way." Like Helen sort of was like, "Oh, we can't do it." Then all of a sudden, she just went double down on it. And when she realized what was at stake, she was like, "No, fuck this." And Ray was kind of there with her, but then Ray, oh, this might be my favorite part of the movie. Barry is a total dipshit and the real asshole of the bunch. And he gets right up on Jennifer Love Hewitt. And I think he like grabs her by the throat or whatever. And he's like, you need to say it. You need to say right now that you're not going to say a word. And Ray just fucking stands there while this guy manhandles his girlfriend. And you're like, dude, like you've lost all the points. Like totally just you should have gone in right now and slugged that guy. Like what are you thinking, right? That's all to say Jennifer Love Hewitt in all these moments is the anchor of the film. She in that moment was the vulnerable one and the right one and in the right saying we can't do this. and they do it anyway. They basically force her to do it in that moment. And then you see what happens to her a year later. She's changed physically. She's forlorn. She's upset. And I think all of that, if you without that, because the rest of the crew doesn't have something you can hold on to. You almost had it with Ray, and then you let it go when he let Barry manhandle his girlfriend. So it's all on Julie's shoulders, and Jennifer Love Hewitt, she achieved that.
One of my favorite things about her character in this movie, it kind of reminds me of Madeline Pesh in The Strangers Chapter 1. We talked about that, where like Madeline Pesh is a very beautiful woman, and like they don't ever make her look like she's gone through hell. You're like, couldn't you dirty her up a little bit? Like she still looks like manicured and kind of perfect. Like isn't that kind of the point of a horror movie? You have to look like you've gone through hell. Like you want her to look like Scout Taylor Compton to the end of Rob Zombie's Halloween. I love in Jennifer Love Hewitt, she comes home from her first year at college and she's got like slightly stringy hair and like kind of bags under her eyes and like she's gone goth. And I'm like, no, she's still Jennifer Love Hewitt. Like you didn't really dirty her up that much.
It made her look cooler, honestly.
Yeah, like, now she's kind of gothy Jennifer Love Hewitt. Like I'm into that, but she's still like I was like she doesn't look that much different. Like you didn't really dirty her up that much. I was like she didn't.
Yeah.
You're not making her think like she's she's gone like waif and she's like 100 pounds and like she's still Jennifer Love Hewitt. For me, Patrick, on the rewatch 2 years ago and then rewatching it now, I really do believe for me it was Sarah Michelle Gellar who stood out because when I watched this movie in 97, as a devout Jennifer Love Hewitt fan, I was primarily watching her and then just watching kind of everyone around her, and she's very much the lead. But I really like what Sarah Michelle Gellar brought to this movie as far as being like the kind of innocuous beauty queen character. I'm going to be an actor. I'm going to go work on soap operas. I'm going to be famous. And then seeing her knocked back down to earth when you return to this town 1 year later and she's stuck working behind the perfume counter of her parents' department store. I think her character like that transition and seeing like how she's just had the wind knocked out of her and her life has not gone the way she's wanted. I thought she played that really, really well, and she did play a much more grounded, demure version of the kind of beauty queen that we meet in the first 15 minutes. She does look like she's kind of what they wanted Jennifer Love Hewitt to be. Like she looks like she's been kind of beaten down by life when you meet her. She's like more or less when you meet her behind that perfume counter. Her sister's like, "Oh no, she's over there." She has that very much like "fuck my life" look in her eyes, where she's like, "I can't believe this is how I ended up." And I thought she did a really good job. One thing I want to mention real quick before we move on, Jennifer Love Hewitt. I heard this story doing research for this podcast. The most iconic moment of this movie,
Yes.
which is, what are you waiting for when they were in the street? Do you know how that scene came to happen?
I did, Damon. I've known this one probably since the day, since the movie came out, because it's an often talked about scene, very iconic from this movie, and they nod to it a little bit in the trailer for the new movie that's coming up. It was like a kid directed that scene. They brought a kid in. I don't remember why.
He won a contest to direct a scene in I Know What You Did Last Summer, and he was a kid, like a 15-year-old kid. He won some like Mountain Dew contest or something to direct a scene in I Know What You Did Last Summer, and he came in and he basically, go ahead, I don't want to ruin you telling the story, but like, yeah, he's like a 15-year-old kid who came and won a contest.
Yeah, and he got to direct that scene, and it becomes the most iconic scene of the entire movie and the franchise, if we're honest. And Jennifer Love Hewitt, again, my best performance of the day, was like, "Are we fucking serious right now?" Like when they came up with the idea, this is what you're gonna do. You're gonna scream out into nothing, and you're gonna scream like, "Come and get me!" Like she was like, "This is stupid." Okay, I'll do it. She does it. She puts her little shine on it. And they shoot it. They put it in the movie. I mean, they could have easily just said, "Hey, kid, it didn't make the cut, but congratulations. Here's your little DVD extra." No, they kept it in the movie. It becomes the most iconic scene in the entire franchise, and I think that's hilarious.
I want to know that kid's name because I think he may have directed this movie better than Jim Gillespie. I'm just throwing that out there.
Yeah, Jim's like, "Whatever, kid. No one's gonna like that scene."
Yeah, the kid, and yeah, because I read the story where everyone's like, "This sounds really fucking stupid," and he's like, "No, trust me, it's gonna work." 15-year-old kid. I don't know what happened to him, but kid, you got it right because it is the most iconic scene in this movie. Patrick, let's move on to our next category, and that is MVP. And this movie, I'm going to take this category myself because I don't know you really have an MVP for I Know What You Did Last Summer. But I do have one. And I know people are going to say, man, this is such a backhanded compliment. It's not, because a lot of times I do fall into the pattern of being like director or writer. And I do think Kevin Williamson is an incredibly talented writer. But I said earlier, I don't think this is his best work. And I just said a 15-year-old Mountain Dew winner was better than Jim Gillespie. So certainly he's not getting my award. The MVP for I Know What You Did Last Summer, and I think this is where you're going to agree with me, and you're going to say, you know what, you're right, this is the MVP, Patrick. It's the fucking soundtrack. This movie opens. This movie opens with a pan across the ocean to fucking Type O Negative doing a cover of Summer Breeze.
Yeah.
This soundtrack, I pulled it up because I actually own this on vinyl. This soundtrack has Kula Shaker, a British band, doing Hush, the classic Deep Purple track. Now, I, at that point, didn't know the Deep Purple track. I actually discovered it later. But that plays in the movie, and I love Hush. That's now become one of my favorite songs. This movie has The Offspring in it. It has L7, Sound Asylum, Toad the Wet Sprocket, talk about a classic band from that era. When they're at the party and they're at their celebration, their graduation party, there's a band called Southern Culture on the Skids playing My Baby's Got the Strangest Ways. They're actually in the movie. They're actually in the background playing their song, and it was a band of that era. It has an Our Lady Peace song, which to me, I am a massive Our Lady Peace fan. I've seen them in concert several times. Talk about Canadian amazing alt rock. I love Our Lady Peace. They play Clumsy in this movie. It's just Korn is on this soundtrack. It is just an incredible soundtrack. And like, as soon as I rewatched this and that Type O Negative song kicked in, which I love Type O Negative, I was like, fuck yes. And this was an era where these soundtracks were fucking awesome. Like, The Faculty had a great soundtrack. Like, so many movies of this era had just a kick-ass soundtrack. And when you could put Type O Negative and Our Lady Peace on the same soundtrack, fuck yeah, sign me up.
I got to be honest, Damon, I don't like this soundtrack.
Dude, what is wrong with you?
Look, first of all, okay, look, I like some Type O Negative songs. I don't like any of their covers. So you immediately lose me. Every one of their covers I can't stand. I hate the song Hush. I loathe that song on all levels, any version ever.
I don't understand
I don't
why.
like that song at all. It's one of those songs that just absolutely gets under my skin. I hate the sound of it. I don't like Korn anymore. I used to. I'm fully admit I used to be a big into Korn, and then I just really fell off with them. Like I'm sure you've had bands where you're like, dude, I used to play that in my car every day, and now I would chuck it out the window if it was in my car. Like that's how I feel about Korn now. So at the time, Korn would have been like, oh, cool, Korn's on this, because I was definitely listening to Korn then. Our Lady Peace is pretty good. I'll give you that. Our Lady Peace and L7 kicks ass. But I don't know the L7 track that was on this.
It was This Ain't the Summer of Love, and I do remember that song. Yeah.
Is that a cover?
No, I don't think so. I'm pretty sure it's there. So I'm pretty sure they also play it in. I want to say they also play it in Natural Born Killers, if I'm not mistaken. I think it's in there.
Yeah, I mean L7's cool. Like I'll admit that. That might be the cool. Like overall, the coolest band on there is probably L7 for me personally.
Offspring, I love Offspring.
I don't like Offspring at all. Oh God, I can't stand Offspring. So yeah, sorry, Damon. I really ain't into the MVPs this week.
Yeah, I'm just telling you, you're wrong, because the soundtrack's fucking kicks ass. Like when you can open with Type O Negative and that's like in there. Because nowadays I feel like so many of the soundtracks are just so generic, because back in the day, you know this, like they you have to buy these songs, like you have to purchase to have the rights to these songs, and so many soundtracks now they don't even put out a soundtrack. Like they'll put out one song, they get made.
That's too expensive, yeah.
Like the Ballerina movie that just came out, the John Wick movie, they got a song done by Halsey and Amy Lee of Evanescence. They made one song, and that's like the feature track. And then the rest of it's just like random shit because they don't want to pay for it. You have to pay for these songs to be in your movie.
And albums don't sell anymore. You know, nobody buys an album. They buy a single or something.
Yeah, so like they've just stopped kind of putting effort. But I was a devout like soundtrack fan of that era. Like the Freddy vs. Jason soundtrack had
it's a great
Kill
soundtrack.
Switch Engage, and like it just had Il Nino and like just all these kick-ass metal bands. I just love when like there's really cool iconic music in a movie, and I have this one. I have The Faculty on vinyl. I have a couple of these on vinyl. But yeah, I love it. So you're wrong. I'm just telling you, this is awesome soundtrack.
I just love how you were all geared up. You're like, I got him. He's gonna like this. I was like, actually, no, I don't like that either.
You're goth. I mean, typo negative is a requirement of goth people to like typo negative.
I like some typo, but I genuinely hate all their covers. Like the minute they opened on one of their covers, I was like, oh man, why didn't we like Black Number One or something? Like, not this.
Yeah, I've always been a big typo negative fan, so I like them a lot. Next category, this one only gets broken out in very special occasions, and this is, of course, this is reserved for just very, very certain movies that we review.
One testicle!
Named after Nicolas Cage in the great movie Prisoners of Ghostland, this is our one testicle award for the, I guess, overacting is the best way to say it.
Yeah, when they give you a little extra.
Yeah. So, Patrick, when it comes to the one testicle award for I Know What You Did Last Summer, who gets it?
Damon, this week it's a posthumous award actually for the late Anne Heche, who played Melissa. They told her to be kind of creepy and scary, and she just took it to 11. And it wasn't even like working in the scenes. It didn't even make sense. Like there's one, like probably one of the only jump scares in the entire movie is when they're about to drive up and she runs up to the window and slams the window and it's like, hey, you left your whatever it was. It was like, and I was like, the fuck was that? Why did you leave that in the movie? It was so stupid. But every time they got with her, she had to be extra creepy and extra scary, because they were trying to lead the audience to believe like, hey, maybe she's the one who did it because she's creepy and scary. And Anne Heche put her Anne Heche on it. And for that, I love her because, Damon, I love breaking out the one testicle award.
For me, good choice. I see it. But for me, there was a couple scenes in this movie where I was like, I kind of understood where the casting directors got the Freddie Prinze Jr. of it all, because there's a couple moments where he's like, he's trying to plead his case to Julie, and he's like, but Julie, I loved you. We were great together. Why don't you love me back, Julie? And I'm just like, whew. It was just a little bit like he gets a little over animated in those moments where he's trying to express his like passion for Julie. And it's almost like, dude, like tone it down just a bit. Like you're getting a little too animated for what is like supposed to be your. So yeah, there were a couple Freddie Prinze Jr. moments where I'm just like, dude, like you're here. I need you down here a little bit. Like, and you're at a 9. You're at a 9. You're at a 9. I need you. You're at a 9. I need you at about a 5. Like is where I need you. So, that's mine. Patrick, next category is our best kill, and we actually share the best kill. So I'm gonna let you just intro it, and we'll talk about it.
Damon, my best kill is one you mentioned earlier, which is Ilsa, who's not a main character. Surprise, surprise. She gets the hook, as all the victims of the fishermen do. But what I liked about her getting the hook is even though most of the kill was supposed to happen off camera, they do cut to a shot of him dragging her with the hook. Because most of the time, I'll be honest with you, they don't even make sense of how the hook kills people. Like he's holding it like opposite anyway, so he'd have to like backhand to kill them, which he doesn't appear to do. He always kind of rears up and goes forward. There's a lot of problems with this movie, Damon. But in that moment when he slashed her and it happens off screen and you see the splash of blood, then they cut to him dragging her, and I was like, this is maybe the hardest, like going hard part of this entire movie.
When you get the silhouette shot of him dragging her through the store on the hook, and you see her literally like her body is bobbing off the floor and like bobbing as he's dragging her with the hook, that is the hardest kill. It's the coolest kill. It's the only one that really stood out to me besides Max getting the hook through the mouth at the beginning of the movie. And as I said earlier, both kills were basically the studio insisting on, hey, we need a gnarly kill at the beginning, and you need to show us some blood in the Elsa scene. So the two best kills were the studio being like, dude, come on, like we got to have something in here, give us something. And so yeah, the Elsa and the Max kill to its credit was pretty cool. The hook through the jaw was pretty cool.
It would have been my second choice for sure.
Yeah, and those are the only two kills the studio insisted upon in the movie, which is kind of
they're
funny.
like, can you kill somebody? And
yeah,
Gillespie's
usually
like, fine.
Yeah, he's like, all right, I'll do something. That's like that Scottish accent.
We should start doing accents. That's going to do very well for our podcast.
Yeah, after Australia for you, I think I was pretty much done with that. So,
Hey, I got a compliment. Somebody from Australia said, "Hey, it wasn't bad. Nice effort."
there's a reason why I don't try to do it, just because I'm like, yeah, I don't. I'm not doing that. Patrick, next category: favorite '90s slasher gang. Not from Scream. Now, there's a lot of iconic movies of this, mid to late '90s slasher hot teen casts. Take Scream out of it because, as we said, that's the goat of that era.
That's a cheat code. You can't use that
That's
one.
cheat code. What other cast of the '90s do you like the most?
I had to think about it, but when I saw this title, I went, "This is the one." I love this movie. I can't wait to actually talk about this movie someday on this podcast, and that is Idle Hands, and that is starring the great Devon Sawa, who we just finished talking about the Final Destination franchise this year, and Devon Sawa leads that cast. Also, Seth Green in that movie, Jessica Alba as the love interest, Vivica A. Fox, and there's some other noteworthy people in this movie too, like Fred Willard, obviously not part of the gang, but he's one of those great, just like those guys. Like you just want to have Fred Willard in your movie. And there's lesser known guys like Christopher Hart, who's sort of like got stuck in the character actor world, but he just had that face and he had that style to him. And it was kind of a goofy, wacky, wild movie. Idle Hands was, I loved Idle Hands. I thought it was a great movie.
Idle Hands is great. Obviously, I'm buddies with Devon Sawa. I think he's incredible in everything he does, but I think Idle Hands is one of his best. It's funny. Seth Green is in that movie, and I've always liked Seth Green ever since Can't Hardly Wait, which people not Can't Hardly Wait. Excuse me, Can't Buy Me Love from the late '80s. He was in that movie, which I adore, the one with Patrick Dempsey. Can I tell you a fun, just real quick?
Please.
I've had this weird hatred for Seth Green, but not for anything he did.
Oh.
It's because, did you watch Entourage?
No, I never watched Entourage.
Okay. In Entourage, Seth Green plays a version of himself in the show. And, Entourage is like all about Hollywood. So like everyone's playing themselves minus the main characters. And Ari Gold being Jeremy Piven is a version of Ari Emanuel, the real Ari Emanuel from Endeavor. They get a lot of celebrity appearances in the show. And Seth Green plays like a nemesis to one of the other characters. And they make him the biggest douchebag dick in this show. Like, he is such an ass. Like, he's in like 5 episodes. And I hate that version of that character so much that, like, I still hold on to this animosity towards Seth Green from that show, which I know it's not because it is Seth Green. Like, he goes by Seth Green in the show. But I'm just like, God, I hate that guy. But it's not really Seth Green. It's just a caricature of him. But for some reason, I've always held this like inner animosity towards him because I fucking hated him in Entourage. But no, Idle Hands is a good answer. For me, actually, I'm just going to stick with Kevin Williamson, and I'm going to go with The Faculty. I love The Faculty. I think it's a great movie, and that very much like this movie in some regard, that one is very much The Breakfast Club. You got the hot outcast Judd Nelson character, which is Josh Hartnett. You got the newcomer girl in the movie. Of course, you got the hot cheerleader girl who's also a brainiac, who is Jordana Brewster. It's a great, Sean Hattasey's in that movie, who is now, of course, in The Pit, which is one of my favorite shows on TV. It's just an incredibly good cast, and it is like the perfect like high school cast. You got the jock, you got the jock who doesn't want to be a jock. You got the outsider loner bad boy who's also a really smart guy. You got the hot cheerleader type. You got the nerd. It's just the perfect high school amalgamation, and I just love The Faculty.
I love that you went the nostalgia route and I went the weirdo route. I think that tracks so much for the two of us.
But unlike this movie, which, as I said, like kind of lost something in the rewatch, I still love The Faculty, and I've watched that recently, and that movie still holds up. I still love The Faculty.
It's been a while. I mean, we're gonna rewatch The Faculty soon because I think we have a. Is The Faculty getting remade or is it Urban Legend? It's Urban.
It is getting. Both of them are getting remade.
Both of them are. Yeah, that's right. Okay.
Yeah, they both are. Patrick, next category. Can we survive this horror film? This is putting us back into classic slasher. I don't know. I mean, I guess if I had to relate to one character in this movie, I guess it has to be Ray, because I was never like, even though I played sports in
You're
school,
not Ray, Damon. You'd have fucking decked that dude for putting his hands on your. I already know. You'd have laid that fool out so hard.
Yeah, like I don't really relate to any of the characters. I guess you know what I mean. I don't really have a lot. I guess Julie is the one I probably had the most in common with.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, me and Julie have dark hair. Damon, I'm gonna maybe help you out, Joggy here, because I have a thought. I tell you, we don't survive this horror movie because we're two inconsequential characters, and the inconsequential characters are the ones who die in this movie. So you and me are the two stoners that hang out outside the shop, and we're the two that get the hook through the brain for sure.
Yeah. I'm the metalhead with the leather coat, wearing it in like 200-degree weather because I want to be cool. You know, I'm outside and like, yeah, I'm like, what do you want? And the fish hook just comes through my jaw. Like that's I die. So it's a good point. And they'd actually show my death on screen because I don't matter. So.
Yeah, we're so inconsequential. We are so not part of that group. I don't know anybody in that group. I'm sure both you and I are trying to paw at Julie, and she wouldn't sniff us. You know what I mean? So we're nowhere near them. So yeah, we definitely get killed in this movie.
Good point. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Next category. Obviously, we're doing this review partially because on July 18th, the new one's dropping. A new I Know What You Did Last Summer is dropping. Which, by the way, let me just start here. The new movie is called I Know What You Did Last Summer. The 1997 movie is called I Know What You Did Last Summer. In 1996, a film dropped called Scream. When they decided to reboot and restart the universe, whatever it was in 2021, whatever year that was, the fifth movie was called Scream. Halloween, released in 1978. Am I getting the year right?
I think it's 78 or 9, one of those two.
John Carpenter's Halloween. 2018, my old buddy, my arch fucking nemesis, David Gordon Green, releases a good movie, by the way, called fucking Halloween. Can we please stop with these reboot, requels, whatever you want to call them, and giving them the same fucking title? I understand it's a brand. I get that. It is a brand. I do understand that. And I also understand that they did I Know What You Did Last Summer, and I Still Know What You Did Last Summer, which is a very easy sequel name, by the way. But come on, give me something creative-wise to where it's not just the same fucking title. I hate it. That has got to be one of my biggest, my biggest pet peeves of these reboots, because this is technically a sequel. Like, this is a legacy sequel. They're not erasing what happened in the original movies because Freddie Prinze Jr. and Jennifer Love Hewitt are coming back in this movie. So this isn't like rebooting the universe. Same thing with Halloween. Like, that was Laurie Strode coming back, just like in Scream, it was Neve Campbell coming back. They're sequels. Stop fucking calling them the same title as the original movies.
They can't bring it. They can't help themselves. They have to do this for some reason with horror movies. I don't know why they do it. Because I literally just got back from taking the kids to see the Jurassic World Rebirth. Now, that's a good idea. Just call it Jurassic World Rebirth. Call it I Know What You Did Last Summer, Setting Sun, or whatever the fuck you want to call it. Like, you know what I mean? Like just, figure it out and give it a name, because it's what it is it's a requel, really. I mean, if you want to get technical here, it's a soft reboot that is a sequel in the series, right? Because Julie's back. Ray is back. They're in the trailer. There's no spoiler there. They're in the movie. So they exist in this universe. They make very clear references to the killer that stalked them way back in 1997. So don't do that shit. Like, why are you going to do that? Like, just name the damn thing something new. Like, I Know What You Did Last Summer, something new. I don't know. But I don't make titles for a living. But please stop with this shit, because it's not a full reboot. It's not.
I joked with you. We were texting the other night, and I said, just call it I Know What You Motherfuckers Did Last Summer. Like, do something like that. Whatever. Just give me. It's just, to me, it's just very lazy. Like, I understand you're capitalizing on the IP, the intellectual property. I get that. But I don't think you're losing your audience by not calling it Scream 5 or not calling it Halloween, 7 or whatever. Or you want to, I know they're doing like it was a reboot from just part 1. Just call it Halloween Rebirth. whatever.
I would have been fine with that. I would have been fine
Yeah,
with Halloween Rebirth or Halloween Revenge or whatever. I don't give a shit.
It's so confusing and so dumb, and I understand this one's a little longer of a title, so you have to like kind of figure out a way. But they did it with "I Still Know What You Did Last Summer." They had to have known there's a way to shoehorn in some of their titles so it's not just the exact same title as the 1997. It's lazy, and I hate it.
I mean, just if we're gonna be cash grabbing, then just call it "I Know What You Did Last Summer, Love Island." And then all of a sudden everybody's like, "Oh wait, no, I really like that. I want to see that." You know what I mean? Like just play the game. Play the game all the way, but don't do this dumb thing where it's like, well, this is really part what, 4? Technically, 3 or 4?
Well, it's technically part 3. There was a third movie that was like straight to video, but it didn't have any of these same cast members in it. So
sure.
I Know What You Did Last Summer. I Still Know What You Did Last Summer, and then this one. So this is technically the third one.
Yeah, I mean, they stop doing it. It's so annoying.
Yeah. Now, I will say when we talk about this movie as far as like what we expect, all I can hope for, honestly, is I think at the heart of it all, we mentioned with this movie, like there isn't a bad plot. Like this isn't a bad plot. They just kind of took it one step too far, and they didn't give us an actual slasher movie for so much of this movie. Give us kills, which I have to assume they're going to learn their lesson, and I assume Jim Gillespie was not a consultant on this film. Give us kills. They gave us Madeline Klein is in this movie, who I love from Outer Banks. That's a show I watch on Netflix. I love that show. She's the Jennifer Love Hewitt, the incredibly attractive, talented actor in this movie, of course. So I'm all for that. And they brought back Jennifer Love Hewitt and Freddie Prinze Jr., which is cool. I don't know how exactly they're going to fit into this universe, but let's find out. But give us some cool kills. And I will say, the director of this movie is a lady named Jennifer Caton Robinson, and she did a movie back in 2022 called Do Revenge. And she also was a co-writer on Thor: Love and Thunder. So let's just not.
Wait, don't bring that up, Damon.
She did write, direct, and produce a little movie called Do Revenge on Netflix, which had Maya Hawke and Camila Mendez in it. I loved it. I was like, this is really fun. Like, it was a really fun, twisty, turny teen drama kind of. It wasn't really horror, but it was like tinged with thriller vibe.
Yeah.
Did you see it? Did you see Do Revenge?
No, I didn't see it. I knew of it, but I didn't see it.
I watched it on Netflix. I was like, this was actually really fun. It was actually a really, really enjoyable movie. And like I said, I really liked it. And funny enough, Sarah Michelle Gellar actually is in that movie. In that one, she couldn't be in this one. But it's a really fun movie. So I'm hoping she brings an element of that to this and just gives us a better I Know What You Did Last Summer. That's all I'm asking for. You don't have to reinvent the wheel, because this movie didn't need to reinvent the wheel. All they needed to do was inject the actual kills and some gore and maybe not give us that last twist. And I think this would have been a pretty damn good slasher for that era. So just do better what they didn't do in 97. That's all I want.
I think it's a total layup. I'm right there with you. Like we often talk about, or we used to talk about, a lot of like retro horror movies that would have been that were ripe for a remake. That's why we have the category remake, sequel, or leave it alone. We didn't have it this week because obviously we're getting a requel, so we didn't need to bring this up. But this movie just needed some refinement. Is really all it needed. I think audiences are more sophisticated, and I think that, they like a little blend of humor, which I would call the original kind of humorless. It's not really a funny movie for the most part. So a little bit of humor, which I can already see in the trailer for this one. I did watch the teaser for the new movie. Because I'm not thrilled and super excited to go see it. So I was like, yeah, I'll see this trailer. I think it's real easy to refine this movie to make the characters a little bit more deep and at least get the plot right. It's not that hard, and it's R-rated, Damon. There's no excuse for not having some really good kills. We can step that up this time. I think of anything, like even if they almost did like a shot for shot remake, just make the kills interesting this time around. And I think they can do it. I think audiences like it. Clearly horror has responded to that, and you got an R rating, so go for it.
Yeah, and the last thing I'll say, and I didn't think about this, and you're right, because Scream came out in 96, this came out in 97. It feels like if they actually tried to take some more time with this movie, they could have made it better, but I feel like they're just like, they got to rush this into theaters because we
Oh,
gotta
the turnaround was insane.
we got to build on the heat of Scream, and so boom, like this was out a year later, and now like this movie's been in the works for a while now. Like they didn't just like put it together. It took a while to get the deals done for Jennifer Love Hewitt and Freddie Prinze to come back. Freddie Prinze Jr. has pretty much quit acting, so like they had to work on that. It seems like they took their time with this one, so I'm hoping like the by the final product that comes out here, soon, we get just a better version of what this movie, because I still enjoy I Know What You Did Last Summer for '97, but as I think about it and break it down and the whole critical eye, all that kind of stuff, I can see the flaws. I still love it as a nostalgia play, but I see the flaws. Fix those flaws, and you got a pretty good slasher, and that's pretty much what I expect out of this movie. So yeah. Last category, Patrick, and this is of course a little different from our normal category, and that is it slashy? Now this is interesting because we've kind of had a lot of criticism about how this isn't slashy. So Patrick, at the end of the day, 1997's I Know What You Did Last Summer. Is it slashy?
It barely is, Damon. And I think we're being dead honest about that. Like, okay, one of my favorite Friday the 13th is barely slashy. Part 7 does not have a lot of blood in it. It still has a really great Jason and a really great main final girl in Tina. So I think it's still a few notches above this in just my personal opinion. But in terms of slashing, what I need, Damon, is some good slashing. We got kind of an iconic silhouette of a killer, so that part works. We got the interesting teenagers, that works. It's there, but boy, is it barely there. I mean, they barely got it over the line.
I mean, this is a slasher just based upon the story and a mask, not really a mask, but a hooded killer, a mystery of who the killer is, and teens getting slashed, or sort of teens getting slashed. It's mostly side characters getting slashed. But it is a slasher. It's just, as we said, and I don't want to keep repeating myself, it's just a slasher that doesn't go far enough. It needed to go that extra level, that extra next step or two to really become a truly iconic slasher. And I will say it does kind of fill up that era, because there's a lot of movies like this where it's like they just didn't put a lot of gore and blood, because we were getting in that end of practical effects, beginning of digital effects, and it's almost like they didn't know where to go in a lot of these movies. And you can kind of tell in some of the effects that are in some of these movies where you're like, ooh, I don't know what they were thinking. So yeah, it is slashy because it's 100% a dyed-in-the-wool slasher, but it just doesn't go far enough as a slasher. So, yeah, that's it. All right, Patrick, that's our episode. Of course, we will be reviewing the new I Know What You Did Last Summer coming up when it drops, I think July 18th or 19th. So we'll be talking about that here in a few weeks. Obviously, we have our Patreon launching days away now. Days away, July 11th. You and I are going live for several hours. You're going to be stuck with us, but we're actually doing a live stream across every major social media platform we got. And we're going to be doing some cool reviews, some other Q&A stuff. We're going to be doing a commentary track, which we've never done, which I think will be kind of fun. So we're going to be doing all kinds of cool shit. So Patreon, Rewind Living Dead. We're going to drop it all over socials next week, as this episode drops. So keep an eye out. Be there Friday night, July 11th. Rewind Living Dead drops Patreon. We started Patreon. As I've always said, I'll just say it again here. This podcast you're listening to right now, where we are mocking I Know What You Did Last Summer, that's still free. You're not going to pay for that. But
That's right.
Patreon will give you some cool extras, some cool things we don't do on the show. And also, I'm going to throw this out there now because we're going to have it as a benefit. You'll get the episodes early. So we are recording this on a Thursday night. It will drop next Tuesday. If you're on our Patreon, we're going to give you this episode tonight. I'm going to edit it and upload the audio tonight. So you'll get it 4-5 days early. Now, it's not always going to be that early. It depends on when we can actually record the episode. But most weeks we record it at latest by Friday night. Mm-hmm. You will have our episodes 3, 4, 5 days ahead of time of everybody else if you're on our Patreon. So that's like one of the biggest benefits. You're going to get the episodes early. And I'm going to record it, I'll edit it, and boom, it's going to be uploaded tonight. So there's a benefit of Patreon right off the bat.
And one little other teaser I want to give, Damon, is we have teased this time and time again as we talk about the Patreon, is we are going to do a once-a-month podcast on a movie that is not a horror movie. And Damon, I'm really hoping that some people sign up because we got Superman and Fantastic Four this month. And I know both of us have tickets already for those movies. Like, we're going to talk about those movies, whether we talk about them on a podcast or not. So if you want to be down with the Patreon, you can vote on one big non-horror movie that we can talk about every month. And we'll do it. We'll do that podcast strictly for the patrons. That will not be going to the public. That will not be going out free across the internet. That's a patrons only special. So those are two of the major benefits right there.
Yeah, so stay tuned. July 11th, we are going live in just a matter of days when this podcast drops, so stay tuned for that. Make sure to be there, support us. We're not charging an arm and a leg for a Patreon. We're just doing it very kind of like it is a side project for this podcast because we love talking about movies, so why not do more talking about movies? So stay tuned for that. Friday night, July 11th. You will see it on all of our socials. We will link it, the shit out of it, in this next few days. So you will not have any problem finding us on Patreon. I promise you that. So make sure you check that out on Friday, July 11th. As always, want to say a big thank you to everyone that tunes in. Make sure you check us out on all your favorite podcast platforms currently. Apple Podcast, Spotify, of course, over on our YouTube channel, and then the website, rewindofthelivingdead.com, where we do additional written reviews, trailers, news stories, other stuff that's over there that's more of like a traditional website, along with our podcast. You got questions, comments, movies you'd like us to review, and you will be able to vote on those movies when you join our Patreon. But send us emails, rotlivingdead@gmail.com. That's rotlivingdead@gmail.com. And you can also find us on social media. Just search Rewind of the Living Dead on Twitter /X, Facebook, and Instagram. And you can also find us on our own personal social media channels. And you can hit us up anytime. I am at Damon Martin, and you are?
At Director Patrick.
And a big thank you, as always, for everyone that tunes in the show. Make sure you join us for Patreon. Friday night, July 11th, we'll be going live. All kinds of cool shit. Be there. And we'll see you next week for another edition of Rewind of the Living Dead. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you then.
Peace.